Welcome back to ITG, the morning show brought to you by Tony Pope State Farm, TonyPope.com. All right, John, we got to get you into this. The Eagles, Redskins / Commanders / Washington football team game yesterday. Goal line. And number 4 just keeps jumping the pile. And, they keep getting these encroachment penalties and all. And then the official comes out and says, basically, we've informed the staff that if this continues to happen, we can impose penalties, and that includes just giving them points. I've never seen this before, and there is a rule in the rule book about it. I found that this morning. Have y'all ever seen that ever at any level of football? And does college football have a similar rule?
I've never seen it, John. And I'll text, and we need to get Dennis back on the show. I'll text my man Dennis O'Keefe, a longtime official located there in Columbia. I've never seen it, never heard of it. What was it? Palpable. The verbiage of that rule is hilarious.
It's it's called a palpably unfair act.
So here was my next question. If they rule it a palpably unfair act and they give the score to, in this case, Philadelphia, in the stat sheet, who gets credit for the touchdown? Somebody has to.
Patrick Mahomes.
It doesn't matter what team's playing.
Well played, John. Well played. Yeah. I mean, like in various sports, it's like the closest. Like if a defensive player accidentally tips it into his own basket in basketball, the offensive player closest to that play gets credit for the bucket. He gets the 2 points.
Oh,
so
really?
who gets the 6? Yeah.
Wow.
Somebody has to get credit for every single point. And so in football, I'm wondering who would get credit in that situation for the palpably whatever touchdown. Palpably unfair touchdown.
Would it just go to the quarterback? I don't know.
I would guess Jalen Hurts, but I'm not entirely sure. I'm just going to give it to John Whittle just for the sake of the argument.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take any points I can get.
Pad your stats, John.
How I feel. You should take it off my tab and put it in the win column. Ben in the chat box said that Feinbaum said that college football does have the same rule.
I believe it. I mean, you kind of have to, right? You can't just let a team jump off sides infinity.
No.
So you kind of have to have some rule like that. So I'm not surprised. I don't know if it's worded the same in college football, but I'm not surprised there would be some type of rule.
Yeah, the article that I'm reading here from the NFL rulebook, I found this morning. A player or substitute shall not interfere with play by any act which is palpably unfair. The penalty, here's the description of the penalty. For a palpably unfair act, the offender may be disqualified. The referee, after consulting the officiating crew, enforces any such distance penalty as they consider equitable and irrespective of any other specified code penalty. The referee may award a score. I didn't understand the previous 2 sentences, but I do understand that may award a score. I don't know what equitable and irrespective of any other specified code penalty means. But
did this bill pass through Congress?
Dude, yeah.
Is this on the Senate floor as we speak?
Wow.
I mean,
okay.
Maybe that's their way of saying if somebody's breaking down the sideline and somebody comes off the bench and tackles a guy who's unimpeded to the end zone, they can award him a score.
Well, that's true. That's
I know. That's probably what it was written for, right?
Yeah, that is a rule. And that's actually in the history of the NFL. I know it's happened. I'm not 100%. I'm sure it's happened in a college game we probably have never heard of. Maybe an Ivy League game or something. I don't know. But that is true. Like if you've got a player just racing in the clear down the sideline for a touchdown and somebody on the opposing sideline just sticks out his leg and trips him, that's a touchdown. That's not just a 15-yard penalty.
Well, then that
would be palpably unfair.
Yeah. Right. It's a wide-ranging rule here. I mean, you could probably lump a bunch of stuff into this.
Jamie, in your many years of broadcasting, how many times have you used the word palpably?
Now 3 in the
John,
last.
have you written it in a column? In a game summary, if you said, the Gamecocks were trailing by 3, and it was palpably bleak, and then all of a sudden, a 4-run rally in the bottom of the ninth propelled Carolina to a much-deserved victory.
Maybe I'll work it into something.
I was about to
See if you can work it in.
Yeah.
That seems like a scrimmage note coming up this weekend at Founders Park. Wow. Well, I don't know. I've never seen it. I hope I never have to see it because it was pretty bizarre. The whole thing was pretty bizarre. But we'll move on, John. Obviously, we're here to talk Carolina. And we spent
8 minutes on something I didn't even see. I didn't get to see a snap of that football game. I was getting back from the baseball scrimmage, and then I had some babysitting duties last night for my sister. Had to watch my little niece and nephew for a little bit, so I missed that game. I saw the Buffalo and the Chiefs.
Yeah. Yeah. Old Rod Wilson might be getting another ring. We'll see, John. All right. Well, doesn't seem like Carolina's going to have any rings this year on the men's side. A reminder, the women play at Tennessee tonight. We'll touch on that coming up here in just a little bit. They did what they do on Friday. They beat LSU, but overtime. So you're talking now 12 total points, and Carolina would be in the dance today at 14-6, 4-3 in the league. Mike called the heartbreaker against Florida last week. We'll let you two go back and forth about that. I thought it was a low-scoring game this weekend. Carolina would clearly have an opportunity to win. It was a very low-scoring game. The end of the game lasted an hour, including overtime, which was bizarre. But the turnovers, John, they continue to haunt them. I don't know what else to say. What do you have to say about
it? I feel bad for everybody over there because they're playing their tails off. I mean, they were down 14 in the second half the other day, and I know Mississippi State's not an incredible offensive team. They're really tough defensively, and South Carolina has some problem scoring. And the fact that they were able to come back from a 14-point deficit with it was 50-36 at one point, and to come back and force overtime is, I mean, those guys are fighting. And credit Jamari Thomas for coming back and scoring 19 a week or two ahead of schedule on that sprained knee. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm disappointed for those folks over there because I know they were really excited about the team this year, just kind of as they were last year, and it just hadn't come together yet for them. They can't seem to break through, and I think a lot of it comes down, in my opinion, to guard play and just not having that guy who you feel like you can get the score at the end of games. I think that's a big deal for this team right now. They haven't been able to get over that hump yet. They've missed some free throws at the end of games. They've turned the ball over way too much at the end of games, and hopefully having Jamari Thomas back will help that piece of it a little bit. And I think it did the other day against Mississippi State. Certainly didn't turn it over 9 times in the last 8 minutes or whatever it was against Florida, against Mississippi State. So, it's disappointing for those guys. And I think that they're going to keep playing hard, and I think they're going to keep playing with effort, and I think they still believe that they're going to break through. But, when it keeps coming at you like this, I mean, it wouldn't take a whole lot for me to break.
No.
I think Mike. The one thing that stops them from completely breaking, number one, say, of all the accolades for Colin Murray Boyles, I'll throw in another one. He truly cares about winning. He's not going to mail it in. You can tell he hurts when they lose. He gets frustrated when they make a dumb mistake, and there have been several. So it all starts there. And number two, I've seen it where if a coach is like on the hot seat, everybody knows he's going to be out, and you're going through a season like this, that's when everybody just folds the tent and you're done. Mm-hmm. That's not the case, obviously. Lamont Paris was the reigning SEC Coach of the Year, just got bumped up, and a lot of these players are going to be back next year. So I don't think you're going to see much quit in this team, which is why I thought they were going to – I told a number of people on our production staff the Florida game, and they looked at me like I was insane. I thought Carolina was going to win the game, and I said as much. I just thought that they were due. I saw it against Auburn at home. They obviously beat Clemson at home. I thought that was their game, and I thought they certainly were good enough to do it. And I continue to say they're good enough to beat just about anybody in this league at home. The road might be a different story. But Jamie, Whittle, permission to make a baseball analogy?
Yeah.
You guys love the game?
Always.
The Florida game in the final 12 minutes reminded me of you got a 3-run lead in the bottom of the ninth, and you bring your closer in for a save. But he's not necessarily a swing and miss guy, so balls are going to be in play. You're going to have an active infield. And you've got multiple infielders that simply can't make plays. And so it's E6, E5, E4, E6. You give up a 4 spot, you wind up losing the game. To me, that's the epitome of frustration in baseball. When you do everything right, but you can't close it because you have a shaky defense. It's the worst way to lose games, in my opinion. Watching, and I'm not trying to pick on anybody in particular, but Jacoby Wright is just not a point guard right now at this level. And watching them try to break a simple, if you played high school basketball, you saw a 1-2-2 press. This is not, Florida didn't reinvent the wheel. And Carolina looked as if they saw a ghost and just didn't respond. It was one god-awful turnover after another. And that's how you lose the game. It is the most frustrating thing in the world to watch because you basically outplayed Florida. You bullied them down low. You made all the plays. You got a comfortable lead late, and all you had to do was not boot it, was not turn it over, and it was just a parade of turnovers to wind up losing. So that to me is about as gut-wrenching a way to lose a game as you can have.
Yeah, I mean, it was 9 turnovers in the last 8 minutes and 12 seconds. And,
Yeah.
Jacoby had the first couple, but, Zach Davis had 5 of those 9.
Yeah, Jacoby's not alone. Very fair. I mean, shoot, it felt like the entire roster booted it a few times, John. I just think it starts with your point guard has to be able to make all the right decisions, be a calming influence, and break the pressure. And I never sensed that. And that's where I do think, look, Jamari is not a flawless player, but I do think they would have won the game if Jamari could help in that regard. They had no help. They're short of – if you don't have a true point guard, effective one in this league, particularly this year, you're going to get buried. They're going to bust you up. And it kind of felt like that down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, and Florida's not a pressing team. I mean, they're not known for doing that and forcing turnovers. I mean, I wrote this in our game thread. I mean, I don't think I've seen anything like that, especially at the college level where you are facing the same press and you turn it over that many times.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, you see it plenty where, a press takes you by surprise. You turn it over maybe twice. Maybe you have to call a timeout and talk through it and get some things figured out. And that was 8 minutes.
Right.
It was 8 minutes. And I just hadn't seen anything like that before. I sat there with my jaw dropped for a lot of that. And it was, I mean, that's got to be the most disappointing loss out of a whole bunch of disappointing losses. I mean, even more so than that Auburn game, I think. You, like you said, you outplayed them for basically 40 minutes, and just it slipped away at the end. And I'm with you. I think if Jamari Thomas was healthy that game, he figures out a way to get him over the line. But I mean, this is something that Lamont has to address this offseason. Like, you can't go into next season with having 1.5 point guards, and that's really what it was. I mean, Jacoby came in as a point guard. They moved him off the ball for a reason. He was going to be a second ball handler. He wasn't supposed to be a primary point guard. If Lamont Paris and that basketball staff last year watched Morris Ugasuk and thought, yeah, he's a point guard, then we were watching different players. I mean, he's not a point guard. I mean, not all the time. I mean, Cam Scott's not a point guard. He's never been a point guard. Who's the other point guard on the roster? So, I mean, they went into the year, at least one short. And that's something that's got to be addressed or this offseason in the portal. You can't go into next year with having only one guy who you feel very comfortable and confident with the ball.
Yeah, in the turnovers, by the way, it was one of the strangest. The game on Saturday, if you go look at the box score, it was a very strange looking box score. I mean, you're talking about a South Carolina team that shot pitifully from the floor. They were 17 of 58, 4 of 20 from long range. So naturally, when you're not hitting shots, you're going to have opportunities to get a bunch of boards. And they did that. I mean, they out-rebounded Mississippi State by 15. They had 45 rebounds in the game, boys, and 21 of them were on the offensive end. But they turned it over 19 times, and Jamari did have 5 of those. I think you mentioned who was the other one. You know, Zach Davis has run the point. He turns it over. The thing with the point guards, I'm sorry, with the turnovers too, John, isn't just the fact that there's a ton of them. It's the fact that they will have 2, 3, 4 in a matter of seconds. I mean, the game that Mike called, the Florida game y'all were referencing, I think they were up, I don't know, 13 points or something like that. My brain's a little foggy on it now.
The high mark was 14.
Okay, so it was right around there. They were up 13 or 14, and then the lead was down to 8, and there was like 17 seconds of game clock that had gone off. And it just not only does not only did the lead shrink, but it's almost like you just sucked the air out of everything that was like there's nobody, John, to stop it. Like they haven't had anybody all year who's been able to stop this thing until it's almost too late. So I mean, we're all saying the same thing here. It's just in multiple different ways. It's got to be corrected in the offseason. But the question is, what do they look like moving forward? My question, John, maybe this is something that you'll speak with LP, Coach Paris, about this week. Do you try to continue to do the things that you're comfortable doing, even though there's a lot of flaws, and just trying to keep cleaning that up? Or are there changes that you think you need to implement at this point in time now that they're almost halfway through SEC play?
I mean, you played. I think you've played well enough to where you should feel pretty comfortable in continuing to do what you can do. The thing that gets you, I don't know that there's a solution for. It's not like South Carolina's trying to play like fast up tempo basketball and they're turning the ball over in these crazy helter skelter fast kind of moments. I mean, they're and you can try to play more deliberate and slow it down and maybe not turn the ball over as much. I mean, that's how they play. They play very deliberate style of basketball. And it doesn't lend itself to these live ball turnovers like they're having, these pick six opportunities, so to speak. I mean, I don't know what kind of real change you can make. I mean, I can't see it from a personnel standpoint. Like every time they put Cam Scott out there, it's a struggle, and they're not even putting him out there right now. I don't know really too much what you can do. I don't know too much what you can do, and it doesn't feel like you're far off. And the things that you want to adjust, I don't know that there are adjustments that you can make.
Mm-hmm. I don't have the answer either. Yeah, I don't know that any of us do. Again, you're talking about 12 points here that are separating 4 games, which would be 3 top 15 wins at home, 2 in the top 5, 1 at Vanderbilt. They'd be 14-6, 4-3 in the league. They'd be easily in the tournament today when you had that Clemson win in. 4. It's just it's the margin for error. Mike, you said it before the season. It's not even razor thin. It is like there is no margin for error or you lose. And Carolina has, with all the issues they've had, they've continued to give themselves an opportunity to win huge games, and they just have not had enough juice to get it done.
Yeah, I'll just say that I've never seen a stat like this in big time college basketball. In the last 4 games, Carolina has 76 turnovers.
Yeah, that's
it's just unheard of. It's almost impossible to do. So if you just cut that by a fourth, you win a couple of those games. rather easily, honestly. So I mean, that's
crazy.
Yeah. Again, I don't think there's any more frustrating way to lose a game in the game of basketball. And to use one last baseball analogy, if you got a lineup that can't hit, as a manager or head coach, you can shuffle it all you want. You can try a new leadoff guy every game, and you can take your cleanup hitter and put him in the 2 spot, and you can play all these analytical games. Guess what? You still got a lineup that can't hit.
Yeah.
It's a fruitless exercise. And so you can mix up the lineup and play different guys. As John mentioned, Cam Scott's clearly not ready. And so you don't have a lot of other, there's no guys left. There's no other options on the bench.
John,
real quick, just the last point on those turnovers. There were 9 in the last 8 minutes. They have 15 for the game. That means they had 6 turnovers over 32 minutes of basketball. I mean, that's not terrible. That's pretty good. But
yeah,
then you fell apart in the end. So I mean, I feel like these guys can play a little bit better from that standpoint. But I guess we'll see. I mean, Mississippi State forces a ton of turnovers. Vanderbilt has forced a ton of turnovers, and Florida hasn't. But maybe they can get it going this week. I know it's Georgia, but they seem to be, I don't want to say floundering, but not playing quite as well as they were earlier. So maybe South Carolina can get one tomorrow night or this coming Saturday. I think it's Texas A&M, right? So. Guess we'll see. They got to break through eventually, right? This is not an 0-18 team.
I don't think so. No.
It's and after, I mean, this is just, everybody talks about the stretch. The whole freaking league is a stretch. I mean, forget it. But you mentioned A&M, that kicks off after that. You go to Lexington, you got Ole Miss in town, you got to go to Florida. I mean, it's just
Still
never
got Georgia,
ending.
right?
Yeah, John mentioned tomorrow.
I mean, I just had Georgia. Oh, that is tomorrow. Okay, my bad. I keep my days of the week are way off. But I've been living out of a suitcase for about 2 weeks. Georgia to me is a winnable game. I know Stegman makes it a little more difficult in their students. And by the way, I'll just say this one last time, and I said it about 7 times on the broadcast. The students on Saturday Wednesday. I don't know what it was like on Saturday. The students for that Florida game, 5,000 of you. A tip of the hat to you. Again, I'm there for all these crowds. There was no better student section I've seen this year in the SEC than what I saw on Wednesday night by the Gamecock faithful. They came early. They were there. They were loud. They were engaged. It's a swath that goes from behind us all the way to like behind the goal and in the corner. So they didn't mail it in. And the crowd overall, not just the students. I mean, the big money. The big money people, they were loud. It was a great environment. It was a true home court advantage. So kudos to that. I've seen too many times where it's like, well, we're not as good as I thought we'd be, so screw it. I don't care. You only get so many games on the calendar. Why not support your team throughout?
That's a great point.
Cap tip to the administration too. They allowed the fans in the upper deck to come down at the under 12 media timeout, and that I thought made a big difference as well.
Very, very true.
Great
I
point.
wish more programs would do that. We say that all the time on the broadcast. Like, I get it. You want to emphasize more money, better seats, but on TV, it's a bad look when you got a whole lot of empty seats in the lower bowl. So let those people get down there and help make it look and sound better.
There's no question. So far, South Carolina is last year's Missouri to a point. And Missouri is last year's South Carolina, is kind of what's going on.
I like that. Yeah. Missouri's damn good.
They are. They're fun to watch. It's Vanderbilt.
They'll be in the tournament. Vanderbilt, Byington.
Yeah.
No one's done a better coaching job in the SEC. I'm not sure if they've done a better job in the country. That is not a great roster.
No.
They don't have a big man. Yeah, but they're really well coached, and they got a lot of kids that bought in, and they do have good guard play. So that obviously is a big factor.
I do love the fact that they have all of their players on their roster listed as point guards.
Yeah.
Even if they had a big man, is he still a point guard?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess you could call him McGlockton. When you wear number 99, on the basketball court. You can't call yourself a point guard. You're a big.
Hey, that's what he's listed as on the roster.
I know.
It's
great.
Well, that would be similar to, if you just listed every player as a pitcher in baseball, John, which I don't think Paul Maneri is going to do.
Everybody's a shortstop too.
Everybody's. Well,
they were in high school.
That kind of, that was kind of the way for a while. Coach Tanner brought in a lot of shortstops and moved them around. Holbrook liked to do that too. Switching gears here as we're getting closer to Gamecock baseball. They did scrimmage multiple times this weekend. We'll have Paul on, Coach Maneri on in the next couple of weeks here with us, but he did meet with the media on Friday as well. Aside from that, John, what did you see? We'll start really with the mound and those guys. I think for a while they felt like probably Jerzenbeck, McCoy, Eskew maybe would be the weekend rotation. A couple other guys are in that conversation. But anyways, give us your synopsis from what you saw out there at Founders Park this weekend, and what do you think that looks like right now as far as a rotation goes?
Yeah, I mean, first 2 days were really cold. Yesterday was pretty nice overall, but when it's that cold, it's hard. And there were a ton of walks on Friday, fewer on Saturday, but it's challenging to play when the feels like temperature is 35 degrees. So, I'm not going to try to draw too many sweeping conclusions, after the first weekend. But a ton of walks, even from guys that you expect to be in the rotation. I think those three, you throw Matthew Becker into that mix in terms of, potential starters. And I think it's going to come out of those four guys. Three of those four guys will be opening weekend. Basically every pitcher, I'm trying to think back, basically every pitcher had at least one rough inning this past weekend. Parker Marlott did not. He was really good. I guess it was Saturday he threw. There was another guy or two, but there's some walks. There's some few errors out there. Ethan Petrie was hitting home runs all over the place, which is always nice. Thomas McCroy hit a couple. Ryan Bakes got one. Gavin Braylon got one. There were a few home runs here and there. So, enough offense. Some things you want to clean up from a defensive standpoint. You're also down two of your infielders with KJ Scobie and Nolan Naraki. And, you mentioned Paul's press conference the other day. And, I wasn't expecting him to say this. He said, KJ Scobie is going to be our starting third baseman. And, I didn't think it had gotten to that point, but apparently it had. So good for KJ, freshman starting third baseman. Once his foot gets healed, he took batting practice yesterday after missing a week, or not a week, 4 or 5 days because of that. I don't know if he'll be back in the lineup tomorrow when they scrimmage or not, but he's got to be getting close. So I think I think he's. I think he's going to help solidify some things from a position standpoint. They got Thomas McCoy at first base and Ethan Petrie at third right now, and things just haven't looked always great from a defensive standpoint.
Okay, so if the season were to begin this week, you're putting your money on LeCroy to be the first guy that runs out behind the plate?
I guess. I'll be honest with you, Jamie, and I might be completely wrong in this, but I don't know that the coaching staff has a real good idea and a real good feel for what it's going to look like either. Not only behind the plate, but at a couple other spots too. Like I'm not sure what they want to do with Ethan Petrie. Ethan told me point blank, he said, I feel pretty good at first base, third base, but I'm definitely most comfortable in right field. Coming into the preseason, if I think Ethan Petrie would be a starter probably at first base, and Evan Stone start in right field, and because he's played so well, and he also brings something defensively too. But I don't know that that's going to hold. Right field feels like it's up for grabs. Ethan Petrie can always go back there. Dalton Mayshore has been a little bit better. There's so many different things that you can do with this team. And I'm not saying sometimes you can do a lot and that be really good, and sometimes you can do a lot and that not be very good. And I'm not sure that this is very good, that there's a lot that they can do and a lot of decisions to make. There seem to be some things that are going to be a real challenge if they have to make some decisions. So I don't know. I like Ethan Petrie and Wright. I think Talmadge needs to be playing. I think he needs to catch. There's going to be some really interesting decisions over these next couple of weeks.
John, how much of the weekend rotation now do you feel like you can put in ink, and how much is in pencil?
I think Eli Jerzenbeck on Friday is about the only thing you can consider ink for. I would go ahead and do that, and probably not even because of performance, just because of reputation. Not that he's performed poorly, but if you go on the balance of what these coaches have watched since they got here, if you just go on the balance of that, like Matthew Becker's outpitched everybody. Right. Like Matthew Becker should probably be the Friday starter based on who's pitched best. But I don't know that that's where he's going to be. Paul Maneri keeps talking about liking him to be kind of a swing guy, whether it's starting on Sunday or closing out games Friday night or Saturday night. That goes back to the point where I just don't feel like they have a great idea of where they're going to be putting everybody, and they don't have to. Like, I'm not trying to speak ill of anybody or say these guys don't know what they're doing. They don't have to know right now. They've got a couple more weeks of scrimmages to kind of figure it out. And then, you got a couple of non-conference series before Clemson too. So, they've got time to make some adjustments and see what they like and what they don't. But, I think Jerzenbeck, I really think Becker is going to be in the rotation. Whether that's McCoy that's not in there initially, or Eskew that's not in there initially. I know they really like Dylan Eskew right now. So, maybe McCoy's the odd man out. He's probably got the best left-handed stuff. He's got the most electric left-handed stuff. He's kind of a Jerzenbeck in some ways from the left side, and both in terms of stuff and confidence. But he's not throwing a ton of strikes right now either, and didn't in the fall. So, I think it's going to come out of those four guys. I just don't know who it's going to be, but I think you're going to see Jerzenbeck on Friday to open the season.
Becker is the wild card in all of this because he's been around for 4 years. We know what he's capable of. He certainly had some moments he would love to have back, but who hasn't in college baseball? And, it'll be interesting to see what they do with him. I know that obviously they're evaluating, like, what is the best role for him on this team? I understand that Coach Maneri, I've talked to him about this, is very much like, Coach Tanner was in those glory years, and the fact that I want to have somebody that I can confidently put in the game to win the game. As in, like, we need to have a back end of the bullpen that we can trust out there, not just a revolving door of bodies, and let's see who does it today, and then let's see who can do it tomorrow. He wants to have somebody he can trust. I know that, but is that the best place for Matthew Becker or whomever else? Again, you mentioned it. We've got a couple of weeks to figure it out, but we'll see. We'll see. I know they like their guys. It's just trying to figure out where all these guys are going to go. I think it's going to take them a little bit of time, John, once the season begins. But luckily, I think the schedule will allow for that, so they can try to get some things ironed out. Let's see who pops. Somebody's going to pop early in the year, and they might earn some playing time because of it.
For sure. And, what you do in the outfield is very much up in the air, too. I think I know you see Nathan Hall starting in center.
Yep.
And Kennedy Jones is going to play somewhere. That dude's – he's been hitting the cover off the ball as well. I didn't mention him earlier. He had a couple of home runs this past weekend. But, do you play him in left field or do you DH him? Blake Jackson's only done okay. He started a lot last year and played some good ball and is an energy guy. And do you put him out there? He's a little bit better defender. Mentioned Evan Stone. Dalton Mayshore, Ethan Petrie. I mean, the only thing I feel really good about right now is saying Henry Kazmir is starting at shortstop and Ethan Petrie starting somewhere. Like, I mean, I think Thomas McCoy is probably going to start, but I don't know that. I think KJ Scobie is going to start at third, but we got to see how the foot heals. Those things can be problems if they can linger. I mean, Kenny Jones is going to start somewhere, whether it's left field or DH, but I mean, there's two guys, Nathan Hall and Henry Kazmir, who where they're going to be opening day, and that's it.
Jones and Petrie, if they can live up to the billing, could be pretty lethal in the middle of that lineup. And let's hope that they're comfortable defensively, so there's no, you don't have any carryover or anything like that. John, we'll get more baseball down next week, and then obviously as we continue to get into the season, and we know people can get more baseball by heading to thebigspur.com. It is that time of the year. Any parting shots? Do you want to hold the Super Bowl food conversation for another week or so? You want to hold off on that?
Well, we can do that. I don't think we got enough time to because I hear Phil playing the music in the background of my ear there, so that'll be another conversation for another week. I was hoping I could figure out a way to put a ball on a tee for Mike Morgan to set up one of his sponsor reads right now, but I'm not sure which one's coming up, so I can't do that.
John, we'll get you a VIP booth at D's Wings. We can make that happen. I'll call Billy today, and we'll make sure you. How many wings can you throw down? What sides do you want? We'll get you taken care of.
Hey, just 10 medium with the side of the raw fries.
Floppy or semi-floppy? How do you like the
raw
fries?
Regular. Just regular.
Little malt vinegar on them?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't like my breath stinking. That stuff smells awful.
We'll give you a little complimentary bottle of Banaka or something, or when you're talking to the ladies. We'll make that happen, John, definitely.
All right, appreciate you guys. Always good talking.
Thanks, brother. Nice hat. See ya.
Yes, as we go to break, I wasn't even going to talk about D's, but he mentioned. It's obvious. Like if you want to go ahead and get your food ready for the Super